You think you know the story of the Antichrist, a monster who arrives at the end. He rules the world for a while. He marks the people. And then Jesus comes back and destroys him. Roll credits. Most people carry that story their whole lives and never look at it twice. But what if I told you the story does not begin with a monster? What if it begins with two ordinary men who were never supposed to be enemies? What if the picture the prophets left us is not a single villain on a single throne, but a pattern that repeats, a pattern that builds, and a pattern that, if you have eyes, you can watch assembling itself right now, in front of the same cameras you watch every night. I am going to tell you that story in 8 movements, and I am going to tell it the way it is actually unfolding, not the way you were taught to expect it. 8 movements. 2 men who were never meant to stand against each other. A war of words broadcast to the entire world. A trick older than any nation alive. An image made by a machine, given the appearance of life. A man in white who quietly took off his shoes. A gathering that the prophets dreaded more than any army. A single word that almost everyone mistranslates. And a choice that is already sitting at your door, whether you have noticed it or not. By the end, the thing you have been waiting for in the future will turn out to have a face you recognize. And it will not be the face you expected. If you have ever sat with the news and felt that it had stopped being only news, that the events of these years were quietly arranging themselves into a shape you could almost name, then follow this channel. Here we read the world and the scriptures as if they were the same page, because more and more they are. This is going to take you about half an hour. Give it that. Some things cannot be understood in a hurry, and this is one of them. The story does not begin in a desert, or a temple, or a throne room. It begins with 2 Americans. One of them sits behind the most powerful desk on earth and commands the largest military the world has ever built. The other was born in Chicago and now speaks every morning for 1,400,000,000 souls. For the first time in 2,000 years, the man in the white robes is an American. Think about how strange that is. For 20 centuries, the office at the center of this story belonged to Italians, Poles, Germans, Argentines. And now, in the exact season when the world is splitting in half, the chair is filled by a man from Illinois. These 2 were never cast as enemies. One was a registered Democrat for most of his life before he became the face of the religious right. The other, by the accounts of those who knew him, was a registered Republican voter before Rome. If you had met either of them 30 years ago, you would never have guessed the costume each would end up wearing. But here they are, the president and the pope, the podium and the pulpit, the most powerful secular man alive and the most powerful religious man alive. Both American, both certain, both convinced that God is on their side of a war, and the moment they were placed across from each other, something began to move. Not loudly at first, the way the most important things always begin, quietly, underneath. Hold both of them in your mind, because everything that follows happens in the space between them. It started with a war that had nothing to do with the church. In the spring of 2026, the United States and Israel went to war with Iran. And from the first days, the new pope refused to bless it. He did not hedge. He did not hide behind the careful, weightless language popes are trained to use. He said that God does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war. He warned of what he called the delusion of omnipotence. He stood up in Africa and spoke of a world being ravaged by a handful of tyrants, men who spend billions to destroy what a lifetime cannot rebuild. He never spoke the president's name. He did not have to. Every person on earth understood exactly who he meant. And the president, who has never in his life let an insult pass unanswered, answered the only way he knows. He went online and called the leader of the Catholic Church weak on crime, terrible for foreign policy, a man who should stop pretending to be a politician and start being a pope. And then he wrote a single sentence I want you to carry for the rest of this video. He wrote, "If I were not in the White House, this pope would not be in the Vatican." Read that again. The most powerful secular leader on earth, telling the head of the oldest religious institution on earth that he sits on his throne by permission. His own vice president, a man who converted to this very church as an adult, told his own pope to stay out of politics, to stick to morality, as if the two were ever separate things. And the pope, 70 years old, the first American ever to wear that white cassock, simply said he had no fear of him. None. And he would keep speaking. Loudly. This is the part the headlines gave you. Two strong men, two thrones, a clash of pride playing out in public. And if you stop here, you file it under politics and move on. But there was one detail almost no one slowed down to feel. According to people inside the Vatican, the friction did not start with the war. It started months earlier in a private room, where Rome believed the message it received was this: the United States was preparing for military action, and it wanted the church's blessing before it moved. It wanted God's name on the invoice. One official, reaching for a comparison, went back 700 years and named the Avignon papacy, the era when a crown captured a church and made it serve the state. That is not gossip about a news cycle. That is a man in Rome, in our lifetime, saying out loud that he is watching a government try to swallow a faith. Everything I just told you is real. On the record, I have invented none of it. And it is precisely because all of it is real that the next movement should unsettle you. There is a story buried in the Gospels that everyone has read and almost no one has applied. A king throws a feast. His name is Herod. His wife, Herodias, wants a man dead, but she cannot give the order herself. So her daughter dances. The king, delighted, swears to give the girl anything she asks, and she asks for the head of John the Baptist on a plate. To everyone in that room, it looked like a king making his own decision. It was nothing of the kind. The request that came out of the daughter's mouth was born in the mother's heart. The visible power and the hidden power were not in conflict. They were in coordination. The one who appeared to act was simply carrying out the will of the one who stayed in the dark. I have come to believe this is the oldest political instrument on earth, older than nations. Two figures who appear to oppose each other while serving the same end. The crowd is told to choose a side, and in choosing, the crowd performs the work that neither figure could finish alone. Now look again at our two men. The same human being could have worn either costume. The Democrat becomes the face of forced Christianity. The Republican becomes the voice of the global left. The parts are interchangeable because the parts were never the point. The point is the heat between them, the friction, the forcing of a watching world into one of two camps. The prophet Daniel saw two such powers long ago. He called them the King of the North and the King of the South. For centuries, men have argued over which modern nation is which, drawing armies on maps, missing the thing Daniel was actually showing them. Two powers, locked in a long war, and
If
neither
it
one
doesn't
of
get
them
done in
is
60
God.
days, that's all right. We go back to bombing.
Neither one is
I
the
don't want to
side
do
of
that
light.
because
They are both pieces on the same board, and the entire purpose of grinding two pieces against each other is the third thing it produces: the synthesis. The unity that free people would never accept if you offered it to them directly, but that they will beg you for once they are frightened and exhausted enough. So watch what is actually being built. If you love your country and your God, you are pulled toward the president, toward the man who promises to drag faith back into the government, by force if it comes to that. Millions feel that pull, and it is real. But if war sickens you, if the sight of bombs blessed in the name of Jesus turns your stomach, then you are pulled the other way, toward the gentle Pope, the man of peace. And here is the trap almost no one sees coming. You do not have to be Catholic to fall into it. You only have to be against what the president is doing. That alone is enough to set you on sympathetic ground with a power that the last book of the Bible spent its final pages warning you about. Both doors are open, both doors are lit, and both doors lead into the same room. This is the movement where I stopped watching the news the way I used to, because I understood that the question being asked of all of us, which side are you on, was the trap itself. Let me take you to the strangest image in the book of Revelation, because once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it in the modern world. John watches a beast rise out of the sea, a power, a system, a kingdom, and then he sees a second beast come up out of the earth. This one has two horns, like a lamb. It looks gentle. It looks like Christ himself. But when it opens its mouth, it speaks like a dragon. And what does this lamb-voiced power do? It does not point to itself. It directs the worship of the whole world back toward the first beast. It works wonders. And then it does the thing that, for 2,000 years, no one could quite picture. It tells the people of the earth to make an image of the beast. And then it gives breath to that image, so that the image itself seems to live, and to speak, and to demand worship. For 20 centuries, that was a riddle. An image made by human hands, given the appearance of life. People imagined statues, idols, talking stone. And then, in the spring of 2026, a sitting president of the United States used a machine to generate an image of himself. Robed in light, the healing power of God flowing from his hand into a dying man. And he released it to the world. He deleted it the next morning. He said he thought it showed him as a doctor. Now hear me carefully, because this is the line I most need you to understand. I am not telling you that one deleted picture is the fulfillment of Revelation 13. I am telling you something quieter and far heavier. I am telling you that the human race has now crossed the exact threshold the prophecy described. We can now make an image of a man and breathe into it the appearance of life and give it the voice and the power of God. The technology is no longer the obstacle. Only the will remains. And the will is being trained right now to look at a man and see the divine. The riddle that waited 2,000 years for an answer was answered. And almost no one noticed because it scrolled past between a weather report and a sports score. Now turn and look at the other man, the peaceful one. In April of 2026, the first American Pope walked into one of the largest mosques on earth, in Algiers. He removed his shoes. He stood before the wall that faces Mecca, in silence for the better part of a minute, in what the world called prayer. No pope in living memory had so visibly prayed inside a mosque before. And there, He said something the whole world received as the most beautiful sentence it had heard in years. He said that to seek God means to recognize the image of God in every man and woman. He spoke of the spirit of peace that should guide all religions, all of them. To a planet sick of war, that sounds like the end of every conflict. It sounds like heaven arriving early. And that is exactly why you have to slow down and look directly at it. Because there is a true thing buried inside that sentence. And the true thing is the bait. Yes, God offers grace to every human being alive. Yes, His image is in every face you will ever see. That is Scripture. That is real. But watch how gently the truth is bent. The narrow road, the one the Bible insists upon, the way that the Scriptures say few will ever find, is quietly widened into a broad and welcoming avenue where every path leads home, and no one is ever asked to leave anything behind. And that is the precise inversion, because the call of the final book of the Bible is only 4 words long, and it is the opposite of every road leading home. Come out of her. Be separate. Do not let yourself be gathered. One man wraps a war in the name of God and asks you to call the flesh divine. The other dissolves every faith into one warm sea and asks you to call the surrender peace. One uses fire. One uses fog. And the prophets told us, long before either was born, that the two would arrive together. Here is what the prophets feared more than any invading army. Not war, not famine, not even death. A gathering. The slow, smiling pull of every nation, every flag, every creed, every altar, folded gently into a single human family, under a single moral authority, with no edges left and nothing held holy, not conquered by the sword. The sword is the other man's assignment. This is done with an open hand, a soft voice, and the word peace repeated until you stop listening to what it costs. And the cost is hidden in plain sight, because to gather everything into one, you must first agree that nothing was ever worth standing apart for, that every difference was only ego, that every conviction was only a wall to be taken down. It sounds like love. It is the quiet death of the very thing that made you worth saving. This is the movement where most believers are lost, and they are lost feeling righteous. Because the man offering the gathering looks kind. He feeds the poor. He stands against war. He removes his shoes. He says the words you have always wanted a powerful man to say. And so you give him your trust, and with your trust, your discernment, and with your discernment, the one thing the prophets begged you to keep. The ability to come out. You were told the Antichrist would be obviously evil, a villain you could point at across a room. But the gathering does not feel like evil. It feels like finally, after all this fighting, someone is bringing us together, and that feeling is the most powerful weapon in the entire story. So let me finally say the word you have been waiting 25 minutes to hear me say plainly: Antichrist. You have always heard it as against Christ, an enemy, an opponent, a devil with horns who hates Jesus out loud. And because that is the picture in your head, you spend your life scanning the future for a monster, and you walk straight past the thing that is already
seal
here.
Will not be removable or altered.
Because the word
Upon
does not
receiving
only
it,
mean against.
The person will be
In the language
spiritually
John wrote
registered
it in,
as part of
it
the
also
kingdom
means
of darkness.
in
It
place
is a
of,
declaration of lordship
instead
and
of,
ownership that cannot
in
be
the seed
undone by
of.
later repentance.
The
because it
Antichrist
a
is not
conscious
only the
choice
one who
to
fights
reject
Christ,
and surrender
he is
to
the one who
Antichrist.
stands where Christ
The fourth
should
reason
stand,
is linked to the eternal and
wearing his
irrevocable
name,
judgment
speaking
described
his language,
in Revelation
offering his
14:9
comforts,
to 11.
and quietly
This text is
receiving the
clear.
worship that was
Whoever
only ever
receives the
meant for
mark
him.
will drink the wine of God's
And
wrath,
John, the
and will
one
be
man in the
tormented with
Bible who
fire and
actually used the
sulfur
word,
forever and ever,
said something
without
almost
rest,
no preacher
day
will
or night.
repeat to you.
There is no room for reversal
He did
or
not say
second
the
chances.
Antichrist is
The
coming
judgment is
someday.
final.
He said the
The
spirit of
punishment
Antichrist
is
is
not
already in the
symbolic. It is
world,
literal and eternal.
already,
The decision to
in his
accept
own
the
lifetime,
mark is equivalent to
2,000
signing
years
one's
ago.
own sentence of condemnation
So stop
before
searching the
God's
horizon
tribunal,
for one man
with
in the
no
future.
possibility of appeal.
The Spirit
fifth
is not
reason
waiting.
is that there is no
It is a
biblical
pattern.
precedent for
And
restoration
the pattern is already
after
speaking,
an act of demonic sealing.
and it is speaking with two
Hebrews
voices,
6:4-6 describes that
one
it
that
is
roars in the
impossible
name
to
of
renew
God
to
and
repentance
blesses the bombs,
those who have fallen away
one that
after
bleats in the
receiving
name
the
of
full
peace
light of truth.
and dissolves the
Jesus
lies.
also spoke
And
of the
both of them,
unforgivable sin,
with everything they offer
blasphemy
you,
against
are
the
pulling
Holy
you
Spirit,
toward the same
which
throne,
consists of deliberately
away from
rejecting
the only
God's
four
word.
words
The mark of
that
the
could have
beast
saved you.
represents exactly this on a global
Come out of her.
scale. A conscious,
The story
public,
you thought was
and
about a future
ritualized
villain was
rejection
always
of
about a
Christ's
present
lordship.
choice.
It is the officialization
That
of
is
the
the
final
thing the prophets were
apostasy,
trying to hand
with no
you.
return. Understanding
date,
these 5 reasons is vital
a
because
discernment.
it disarms any dangerous illusion
I want to be
that,
careful with you
in the
here
time of
at the end,
tribulation, someone can
because
accept
this is the
mark
place
to
where men
survive
like me
and then
usually ruin
repent.
everything.
God's word
This is the
doesn't
part
leave
where the
that door
preacher
open.
raises his voice
Therefore,
and tells you to
the
be
message
afraid,
needs to be preached
and then
urgently
tells you
now,
exactly
while
what to
there is still
feel.
time. Those who hear
I am
and
not going to
understand
do that.
today,
Fear is the currency both of these powers trade in, and I will not pay them with yours. And I am not going to tell you what to do, because the moment a man tells you what to do is the moment you have handed your discernment to one more voice that is not your own. What I will leave you with is not fear. It is clarity, the strange, almost quiet kind that arrives when you finally see the shape of the room you are standing in. 2 men are at war on your screen. One offers you a nation forced to its knees. One offers you a world with no knees left to bend, because everything has been made equal and nothing has been kept sacred. You have been told these are your only 2 choices, that you must love one and hate the other. You do not have to choose either of them. That freedom is the exact thing both of them are working to take from you. And it is the one thing no government and no church can actually reach, unless you hand it over yourself. And there is one more turn, and it is the hardest one. So I will say it plainly, and then let it sit. The spirit of the Antichrist, the spirit that puts a man where God should be, is not only out there, in the white robe or behind the desk. It is the same spirit that lives in every one of us on the day we decide we are the final authority on good and evil. The day we put ourselves on the throne and call it freedom. The villain at the end of the story has always shared a face with the person watching it. That is why the choice is real. That is why it is yours. The stage is set. The 2 figures are in position. The image that breathes has been built. The gathering has begun. With the shoes removed and the soft word about every road leading home. And underneath all of it, older than all of it, one voice is still saying the same 4 words it has always said. Come out of her, my people. That is not a command to hate anyone. There are good and gentle souls inside every one of these systems, and the voice is not naming them enemies. It is calling them home before the doors finish closing. You were never the audience to this story. You were always the prize both sides are playing for. The only question the prophets ever left you with is whether the hand that moves you will be your own. If this reached something in you, do 4 things, and do them today. Follow this channel, because what is coming will need watching. And it will need watching by people who are awake. Send this to 5 people you actually trust, the ones who feel the weight of this hour and have never had words for it. Leave me a real comment, not a polite one, telling me the one movement that landed hardest and why. And tell me what you want me to take apart next, because I read them, and I choose from them. I will be here, watching the same world you are, reading the same old book, keeping my eyes open and trying to keep yours open too. 8 movements. The story you thought was about the future was happening the whole time you were waiting for it.